Welcome, everyone, to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. Carlos Alcaraz is champion in Rotterdam, his first indoor hardcourt title, and Denis Shapovalov, with the best, most impressive title run of his career, he wins the newly revamped ATP 500 in Dallas. We're going to go over both of those tremendous finals on today's episode of Monday Match Analysis. Apologies for the late release. Combination of travel and Super Bowl and a technology malfunction has pushed this back even later. And I hope I do a good job here because I'll level with you. I am Australian Open levels of tired right now. But the good news is lots to talk about, lots to discuss, fun stuff to discuss. I want to start with Chapo. The splashier of the two results, Rotterdam, one of my favorite tournaments, don't get me wrong. Alcaraz De Minaur, excellent final, don't get me wrong. But Denis Shapovalov, given the difficulties of the last 2 years, pulling off a run this good, 3 top 10 wins. Taylor Fritz from down a set in the round of 16, second round really. Tomas Machac in the quarterfinal, which is not going to be a part of the headlines. It's not a part of the top 3 seeds or 3 top 10 players kind of deal. But Machac, world number 25, who I believe is underranked right now based on how he's played in the last several months. Tommy Paul in the semis, Casper Ruud in the final. A gauntlet. He becomes the 4th player to beat 3 top 10 players in one title run at an ATP 250 or 500. He is now on track to be seeded at Roland Garros, ranking up to around 32 in the world now. I'm going to get into what impressed me about Shapo's performance, but I'll weave in a lot of these main points through the big moments in the match that stood out to me. There are 3 of them. I want to talk about the end of the first set tiebreak. I want to discuss the break of serve that Ruud fashioned at the start of the second set. And I want to talk about what Ruud did to close the deal, serving it out at 5-4 in the second. In the tiebreak, at the end, down the stretch, one of these 2 players got a little bit loose and made some unforced errors in bunches. And if you were going to say one player is going to make a batch of errors at the end of a first set tiebreak, you certainly would have predicted that it would be Denis Shapovalov, a player who can fall into that trap of making a lot of mistakes. Casper Ruud, incredibly buttoned up, does not give away much at all, does not miss from neutral, is as consistent as they come. At the end of the day, he was the one who made 3 unforced errors on the final 4 points of the first set tiebreak to lose it from 4-all. That said, let's get into the why of it right away. As Ruud, just to go over the errors, it was a +1 forehand inside out that he missed just wide. It was a backhand, regular rally ball backhand that he tried to hit high and heavy, and he missed it just long. He tried to hit it really high. He put a lot of flight on that ball. And then another +1 inside out forehand. This time, he found the top of the net. But to me, it was clear as we get into the why did one of the most consistent players in all of tennis make 3 unforced errors down the stretch of the first set tiebreak? I don't think it was because he was tight. It didn't look tight to me. Those swings didn't look tight. What I think it was that he actually felt the need to take a little bit more risk than he would normally take. If you look at the nature of those inside-out forehands, was he playing them tighter to the sidelines, a little faster than normal, a little lower than normal? Wasn't playing with that shape that usual safety. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, he'll get after it on a +1 forehand. Casper's not one to always, hold back on that ball. But I think under extreme pressure in a big spot for him to miss like that, I think it speaks to the fact that he was looking to put a little bit extra on the ball. And then if you look at the backhand error, there is no doubt that had to do with fear factor based on what Shapovalov was doing, the quality he was bringing throughout the entirety of that first set. Shapo hit 27 winners in the first set, routinely taking the racket out of Casper's hands. And if you look at that backhand, Ruud didn't want to hit a regular backhand cross-court trade into Shapovalov's forehand. So he looked to change the tempo of the rally, change the pattern of the rally by taking a high, heavy backhand down the line, a shot that he hadn't attempted all set long, and a shot that just required, it's a less programmed shot for Ruud, because the regular backhand cross-court rally ball is one that Ruud finds the court on that more consistently than basically anybody else. He doesn't miss that shot, but he didn't want to hit a regular backhand cross-court. He felt the need to change up the rhythm and make sure that Denis was, uncomfortable with something and was trying to get it to his backhand, shying away from his forehand. So the point is, those misses from Ruud were earned by Denis. The other thing that Denis did was he made first serve returns in play in order to get Casper to miss 2 +1 forehands. We're going to talk about that, because as we transition to the next big moment in the match, which was the break of serve at love 1 in the second set, the block returning was the continued theme. But this time, it almost proves and it almost works perfectly here. Because I'm telling you that Casper missed because he felt the need to put a little bit extra on the ball. In this case, he did not miss. He did not put a little extra on the ball. And Shapovalov sort of, I don't want to say made him pay, because that made it sound like Ruud was making some sort of mistake in this case. But the point is, Casper took a little bit off, perhaps. Not that he hit it softly, but he was taking a little bit off. He was making the ball, and Shapovalov, with his explosiveness, was hurting him. Ruud made 4 first serves at love 1. He got 4 attacking +1 forehands. He made all 4. And on the 4th shot of each rally, each of those rallies, Denis was able to turn the point on its head. There were 2 runaround forehands, forehand inside in on the +1 by Casper. Denis hit running backhands cross court into the open court. One of them was a clean winner off the baseline, just crushed. The other one was a little more central, deep, made Ruud basically half volley from the baseline and sort of float the ball. Denis would take control off the next shot with a big forehand and put away a volley. There was another that Casper hit a +1 forehand drop shot. It was telegraphed a little bit. Shapovalov scrambled up to the ball, drove a backhand, put away a volley. The last one, I'm not going in order, by the way. I'm just kind of going through what happened here. The last one is a Ruud serve, a forehand down the line approach shot, and Shapovalov passed him with a forehand cross court. That was slightly mishit, but it was still a passing shot. So it's the same pattern every time. Ruud first serve, Shapovalov block return, Ruud forehand attack, and on the 4th shot, Denis turns the point around in his favor. Let's talk about the nature of the block return. It is slow pace, and it is low. Sometimes it's short, sometimes not. But it does a few things. First off, it makes it difficult for Casper to generate a ton of pace because he doesn't have any there's no energy on the ball coming in. Okay, so he needs to create everything. We also know that with a underspin block return in these lower bouncing indoor hardcourt conditions, the ball's going to stay low. With Casper's Western grip forehand, he doesn't get that ball through the court nearly as well as he would if the ball bounced up to waist high. And he could really get the signature penetration that makes his forehand so dangerous. He has, although his forehand is very big, it is very sensitive to contact height. And when the contact is low, it's much easier to manage Ruud's forehand as his opponent. And then the other thing is the block returns were kind of dragging Casper out of position because twice he ran around, went inside in, and Shapovalov, with his running backhand, went hard into the open court. And why was the court open? Because Casper ran around to hit a runaround forehand. And then the other thing we were seeing off of some of those balls was Casper having to hit from well inside the baseline and then either come in and risk getting passed. He almost got broken. He almost went down a double break in the third set because the service game after this, he kept getting passed off of Denis's fourth shot. Same pattern. Short block return, Ruud forehand attack, and in this case, Shapovalov pass. But if he stays back, well, he's still not in position to defend if Shapovalov goes big off that fourth shot. But the point is, Ruud couldn't put these forehands away, and he was getting counterattacked. Denis was putting the returns in conservatively and then using his speed and power to turn defense to offense. This was kind of one of those things, you feel like Denis and maybe a few other guys could pull this off. But to think that Shapovalov could have success despite Casper making first serves and hitting attacking +1 forehands is absurd. And it speaks to the explosiveness of Denis's movement and his ability off the ground from difficult positions to create insane pace on the tennis ball. And that's where he was able to sort of turn these points around with his shot making. So, there's precision, there's the ability to play, time the ball on these passing shots, but a lot of it is ball speed from difficult positions and the work that he does with his legs to get to the spot in time with enough time to generate the kind of pace that was giving Ruud so much trouble. Okay, the other thing is it's really tough for Ruud to hit his backhand cross court into Shapovalov's forehand. We've already talked about this a little bit with the unforced error that Casper made trying to hit the high backhand down the line. I'll say the super loopy backhand down the line. If you look at this 5-4 game, Denis got himself into a somewhat sticky situation. He was down 15-30 after hitting an approach shot into Ruud's forehand and Casper hitting a dipping return at Shapovalov's feet that actually snuck under his racket. He was down 15-30, trying to serve out the biggest title of his life. Last couple service games for Denis, he got through them impressively, but you could tell the anxiety was there. He was making more mistakes because of the nerves. It's a big spot, 15-30. Second serve. Shapo hits a slice serve out wide. Ruud's backhand return is short enough. Denis can give himself a green light. Forehand down the line approach shot. The approach shot, again, very central. He did hit it hard, but very central. Ruud gets a decent look at the forehand pass and hits a beauty. It's a great forehand passing shot. Denis, full stretch, backhand, volley, low, dropper, perfection. Special stuff here from Shapovalov on the volley to bail himself out after hitting a forehand approach shot that just found too much of the middle of the court. But going back to, I won't go back to the beginning of the point yet. 30-all, Denis makes his first serve, slice up the tee. Ruud hits a stretch backhand block return, and Denis has a low midcourt forehand, approaches into Casper Ruud's backhand. Ruud throws up a lob, and it's a very, very short lob and an extremely easy overhead put away. Looking back, this was a lack of confidence for Casper and his backhand. Ruud had enough time to drill a backhand passing shot here. Or if he was going to lob it, he could have lobbed it more offensively. And sure, his intention was not for it to be so short, but the height at which he hit the lob, he was basically submitting himself to giving Shapovalov an overhead here. If it was deep in the court, then maybe it could have neutralized. But to me, if Ruud had a little bit more confidence in his backhand, he would have just hit a regular passing shot here, not thrown up a defensive lob because there was enough time. At 40-30, it's another second serve. It's another slice serve into Ruud's backhand. This return, even shorter in the court, extremely short. And Denis hits a forehand down the line approach shot. This one he hits well, and it's a smash again for a winner. Game, set, match. The backhand return that Ruud hit there was on a platter for Denis. So if you look at it, first of all, very confident offensive front foot play by Shapovalov under pressure. We were seeing this all week, all throughout the final. The serve forehand firepower is ultimately what makes Denis so difficult to beat. And it showed up in every big moment here. But if you look at it, second serve backhand returns by Ruud. He got attacked off of both. He didn't do enough with these backhand returns to not allow Denis to feel really comfortable attacking a +1 forehand. And on a second serve return, you ask your backhand to do a little bit more than that. And then on the passing shot, I've already made my thoughts known. I felt like he could have done a lot more than throw up a defensive lob. So it's Denis kind of running offense through Ruud's backhand, which has gotten so much better in the last couple of years, but still couldn't quite stand up to Denis, the big forehand, and some of the offense that he was bringing into that wing. Other notes on Shapovalov, things that stood out. The quality of his second serve, tremendous. He won 65% of his second serve points. He was hitting that hard slice serve out wide, often around 105 miles per hour. I did outline 2 massive second serve points that he won with that slice serve out wide on the ad side, where Ruud just couldn't do enough with those returns. Shapo only double faulted twice. That's a big deal. And a huge turnaround from what we've been seeing, even just in 2025. 4 matches coming into Dallas on the year for Denis, 52 double faults. 5 matches in Dallas, 22 double faults. I'm going to repeat the number. 4 matches, 52 double faults. That was coming in. Here in Dallas, 5 matches, 22 double faults. How much of that had to do with indoor conditions? How much of that had to do with he just started to feel really good about his serve? Probably a little bit of both. There was enough ball in play consistency from Denis. I thought his balance, the stillness of his head, those things were kind of kept under control, which to me is more important than shot selection. Shapovalov is going to be hyper aggressive on his shot selection always. That's never changing. I still think that he can keep the ball in the court enough as long as he has some body control. He's not snatching at the ball. He's not, flinching in his upper body. He's not falling backwards, falling to his right, just sort of like when he's not all over the place in his mechanics. I think he can play that very aggressive shot selection and make enough balls. We saw a lot of that. There was also calmness and there was composure. Now, after losing the first set to Taylor Fritz, there was no adversity. And it's a lot easier to be calm and composed when you are winning every set you are playing. But it's still notable for Shapovalov because in the past, we certainly have seen him figure out, things to sort of lose focus over or get distracted over or get overly emotional about. And that was not a part of his game after the first set against Fritz, where he had a little bit of a blip. So let's get into the big picture here real quick. What's the Denis Shapovalov state of the player? What I kind of want to say about this is be careful not to ask the wrong question. In my opinion, is Shapovalov going to be consistent now? That's the wrong question. I hate that question. I'm not asking that question. I have said in the from the very start in Shapovalov's career, and believe me, a very common mailbag question circa 2021, 2022 is, when is Shapo going to be consistent? I've had the same answer his whole career. I don't think he has the play style that is built for week-to-week consistency. I don't think he has the mental makeup that is necessarily built for week-to-week consistency. He doesn't need that to have a great career, to accomplish great things. He doesn't need that. The reason he fell off, as far as his ranking and his quality of play, is because we weren't seeing those ultra high, stunning peaks of unplayable, explosive tennis. That's what we weren't seeing for the last 2 years. Now, he had to shut down his 2023 after Wimbledon due to a knee injury. It was not a good knee injury. Last year, he played a full calendar. He played the full season. He just didn't look right. Finished on a good note, winning Belgrade. Wasn't nearly as impressive as this title run, needless to say. But all in all, his 2024, the consistency wasn't the problem. It's that he wasn't finding those highs that make, him so enthralling at times. The Fritz match was huge here in Dallas because he was on a 12-match final set tiebreak losing streak. 12 deciding tiebreaks in a row he dropped, and he was on an 8-match losing streak against top 10 players. And it just felt like the confidence went through the roof after the Fritz match, just like that. Something changed, something clicked, and he found that peak level tennis that I think is facilitated by the fact that he's healthy, by the fact that he can move around the court explosively and serve big and counterattack from difficult positions because he's got his legs under him again. So I don't know what's my point here. My main point is that if he can just have weeks like this once in a while, he's going to be back to being a top 10 player, and he's going to have a great career. He doesn't need to be consistent on a week-to-week basis. When he plays like this, I'll just end on this. It's great for tennis, okay, because he is as electric as they come as far as viewing experience, and I've seen it live. The fans love him. Fans love to watch him play, and his highlight reels are as electric as they come. So it was tremendous to see the fireworks display return from Denis Shapovalov this week in Dallas. Great for tennis. Let's move on to Rotterdam. Alcaraz over De Minaur, 3 sets. First indoor hardcourt title for Carlos. There was statistical significance to Alcaraz's struggles on indoor hardcourts. He'd never even made a final, which I thought was kind of damning. Win percentage was down. thought some of it was calendar spot and scheduling. Do keep in mind that Alcaraz normally would play the sunshine double. He would normally play the golden swing, which means he was playing clay on February. That stripped him of some opportunities to win indoor hardcourt titles. And then post-US Open, I don't think this was true last year, but the previous couple years, it did feel like he was kind of burnt out that time of year. So part of it was calendar spot. Some of it is conditions, like preference of conditions. There's no doubt about that. He is more likely to get outserved on indoor hardcourt. He's more likely to kind of get rushed and play more, have to play more defense on an indoor hardcourt. That said, you could never really give me a compelling argument. I mean, Nadal got hurt by the low bounce on indoor hardcourt, big time. But for Alcaraz, and especially with how attacking he is, you could never really convince me that a two-time Wimbledon champion at 21 years old had some sort of massive issue in low bouncing conditions, and he was never going to crack this code. And if you really look at it big picture, and this is a point that I definitely want to make, the surface versatility that Alcaraz has shown early in his career is like elite, like all-time elite surface versatility. Nobody since 2009 has ever won a 500 on grass, hard court, and clay. And that was before he won here in Rotterdam. Now he's won on indoor and outdoor hard court. So that's at the 500 level. At the slam level, we already know he's got a couple of opportunities to be the youngest ever to win a career Grand Slam. He beats De Minaur in 3 sets in this final. It's 6-2 in the third. It was a very tight contest, I will say. 6-2 in the third misrepresents it a little bit. Definitely Alcaraz ran away with it late. He got that insurance break. Never needed to even serve out the match. De Minaur won the second set. Alcaraz won the first. Alcaraz's record in finals, incredible, 17-5 now. But let's get into the match itself. First off, I thought that Alcaraz really turned it on defensively in the third set. And De Minaur, he struggled to hit through. He was having trouble hitting through the court. Rotterdam is not very fast, especially not for an indoor hard court. And De Minaur, if you just look at the forehand, he averaged last year 73.7 miles per hour on his forehand. That is 114th on tour. He is playing, and I do think that he's made it a little bit faster this year. I expect him to move up that leaderboard when we look at it next year, but it's not going to be a drastic rise up that leaderboard. He's still on the lower end, and he's playing the fastest player in tennis in Carlos Alcaraz, maybe tied with Alex himself. It's not going to be easy for De Minaur to finish off points. He's going to try to take it early. He's going to try to, redirect and play close to the lines. And you would think he's got to come forward and finish off points at the net, which De Minaur typically does really, really well. The problem was he wasn't winning points at the net. De Minaur for the match was 6 of 13 at the net, 46%. And courtesy of Tennis Insights, we compare that to De Minaur's average over the year, 70%, which is, by the way, 5% better than the tour average, 65%. And that, my friends, is why something I've preached over the years. 55%, 50%, 60%, that's not a good net points won percentage. You've got to clean up. You've got to be comfortably over 50% in net points won in order to be really, truly having a quality, net rushing performance. Tour average, 65%. De Minaur in this match, 46%. A radical departure for Alex and the typical net rushing success that he is able to achieve. And by the way, it wasn't bad volleying. I thought sometimes Demon's approach shots just didn't damage enough. Alcaraz was able to protect his contact point, stay on balance, and blast passing shots by. There were other times where perhaps De Minaur's approach shots were damaging enough, and Alcaraz just does Alcaraz things with particularly with his slicing. Something that Hugh Clark at Thread of Order has emphasized a lot recently. Alcaraz's slice pass, particularly on his backhand. It's the same thing that we see on his drop shot. Soft skills, the ability to soften up the hands and produce something very delicate and precise. And Alcaraz will do it on the passing shots by dropping the ball short in the court and low from a desperate position. It's so hard to do. And the volleyer just ends up with the ball at their feet. Not to mention Alcaraz buys himself a little bit more time to chase down that next ball because his passing shot is slow. But more importantly, the volleyer has the ball at their feet, and it's very difficult to finish the volley. We saw a little bit of that as well. So what did De Minaur do? He ended up staying back a lot. His confidence just appeared to be sort of shot as far as his ability to come forward. And Carlos won a lot of points with his legs in the third set. One that really stood out was at 15-30 in the third set in the game that Alcaraz broke. It was love 15, actually. And De Minaur had 3 attacking forehands inside the court, and he just couldn't get the ball through. And then as soon as Alcaraz had a forehand to attack, barely actually, it wasn't even a great one to attack, but as soon as he had an opportunity to, at the very least, take control, he hit a forehand inside out, massive, to force an error from behind the baseline. So there's your difference in forehand firepower playing out right there. That was important. Let's talk about the serving. Alcaraz outserved De Minaur, clearly. I'm not going to say it was like a massive difference, but it was a clear difference. Alcaraz was the better server in this match. A lot of it was the body serve. Body serve for days in this final. You can look at big spots. First set, 5-4. Alcaraz serving at 30-all. Back-to-back service winners going right into De Minaur's chest. Third set, 2-all, 30-all. At this point, you're thinking, who's going to win this final? We're a set apiece, 2-all, 30-all. Body serve sets up a really weak return. Very short backhand +1 finish for Alcaraz. For the match, 9 service winners into the body. We have this beautiful return contact point graphic for those watching on YouTube, courtesy of Tennis Insights. And you can see the white dots are the service winners. You'll see that there are, I believe, 9 of them, 9 service winners into the body of De Minaur. The golden dots or the yellow dots are points won, and the red dots are points lost. If you add in the service winners and the points won, I believe that Alcaraz on the deuce side hit the body serve 12 times and won 11 of the points. This is against a guy who statistically last year was the most difficult player to win a first serve return point against in the world. To me, this was such a strong performance on the body serve. The rest of the tour needs to look at that and notice that. Because De Minaur, he stands very close. He doesn't have long arms, which would in theory make it easier for him to get out of the way, but he does stand very close. I also think his forehand technique, he kind of requires a lot of space between the ball and his body on his forehand. He does not like it in tight at all. And that's another reason why I think the body serve can be effective. Let's check on the new service motion of Alcaraz. Okay, we'll continue to kind of go back to this at certain points this year. An early check through 10 matches. And Alcaraz, of course, is 9-1 in his first 10 matches of 2020-25. I added an extra 20 there, but you get the point. It's not surprising that the stats are good when you're 9-1. But these are the early returns on Alcaraz's serve. Career high in ace rate, about 2% higher than what he did last year, which was a career high. About 2% higher than his career high first serve points won last year, going from 73.6 to 76% on first serve points won. And by the way, so that's actually a 2.5 point increase, percentage point. And then hold percentage, maybe the most important stat of them all, that is also up about 2%, a new career high from 86.1 to 88.5. You got to throw in the caveat, not only that the sample size is small, but also they haven't hit the clay yet, where those stats tend to come down a bit. I should also mention that it is a career worst double fault rate for Alcaraz, and just by a little bit, also a career worst in second serve win rate. Overall, if you take a look at the service stats as a whole, you're inclined to say that the Alcaraz serve continues to get better with this new technique. Quick notebook dump before we wrap up. One, De Minaur, the baseline hugger that he is, and you see a little bit of this in the center matchup, really tough for him to absorb that top 1% of weight of shot. The ball's coming faster and deeper and heavier in terms of even topspin rate. And sometimes it just looks very uncomfortable for Alex to try to hold the baseline against that kind of firepower. Second thing, De Minaur clearly under the weather for this match and for most of the week. And again, he displays incredible toughness, to make the Rotterdam final and look extremely good doing it while not being physically at your best. He is as tough as they come, Alex. And we saw that last year fighting through the hip injury, miraculously making the U.S. Open quarterfinals. But I think that should be said here. Alcaraz was also sick towards the start of the week. I did think he was looking kind of fine by the end of the week and when he played the final, but who knows? And it's also a good effort by Alcaraz battling through the illness. Another positive for De Minaur, I thought off the back of the center loss that it was important that he felt some success in this match. And he did do that. He won the second set. He was competitive in the early stages of the third. And I think that's important for Alex's confidence after what happened in Australia with another one-sided defeat in what has been a very one-sided head-to-head against Jannik Sinner. De Minaur maxed out his offensive intention. He made Alcaraz play a lot of backhands at times, and that was kind of the architect, or that laid the foundation for De Minaur's second set advantage, because Alcaraz hit a very inconsistent patch with his backhand in the second set. That cost him, and De Minaur was going to make sure that cost him because he really tested the Alcaraz backhand, particularly when Alex didn't have a chance to play, hard, aggressive shots. He was generally at least trying to keep it to Alcaraz's backhand in those situations. So that's about it. Look, I think it was a really close match. I thought Alcaraz found small advantages, but significant, or not significant, small but important advantages in finishing and serving. And he was at least competitive enough in consistency in the first set and the third set where he didn't allow that to become such a big advantage that it powered Alex to, enough success in order to win the match. But a well-played final and another entertaining final. That's all I got for this week. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.